Redirect and Facebook Live. All right. So can you guys see me or hear me? So we work in real time here? Seems to be. So can you guys see me or hear me? Okay. So we work in real time here? All right. So what I'm going to do, seems to be, close this off here. Okay. I'm going to mute myself on this side here, come back in. God, good grief. All right. Oh, so Lorena, okay, let me let you in. Lorena, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hey! Yay!
I'm going to leave the Zoom because I don't want to mess you up.
Okay. Now I don't see David.
That's okay. Click down here. You will.
No, it's only me.
Oh, shit. He'll come back in. He'll come back in. Oh, my goodness.
Hi, we are not savvy on these things. Hey, David. Hey, there you are.
I got kicked out.
Yeah.
Everybody can hear you right now.
Can everybody hear David?
Just so you know.
Can everybody say something on the comments there?
We're good? All right.
Let's see. Let me see if there's just see if they can hear you.
Here. Go like this. And then they can see him. Put your coffee cup. There we go. Hey, there we go.
Hey, it's a mini David.
It's a miracle. It's a freaking miracle.
That's David. Okay, let me put him as. Oh, you're on the main screen.
Yeah.
How can I make you big on this one? I can. I guess not. Right. Okay, David, that says. Okay, so you're on. Everybody can hear. Let me just ask. Oops.
I think everyone can hear. That was good.
I think we're good. Yeah. So listen, you know, and so Facebook decided not to get rid of the ad to be able to communicate with people. They got, and I didn't know.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, I had no idea until I tried to do it last night, and then all of a sudden going, "What the hell? I can't talk to this person."
Okay, because we see you in the comments here, David joined, but we cannot add you as a conversation within the Facebook. But you're here.
No, yeah. Well, listen. Let's start the conversation and you know, and yeah. I mean, it's kind of a big topic, right? You know, we're
all right. Everybody, it's good.
Okay, we're good. All right, let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So where do we begin? Well, we'll begin by introducing you. Or you introduce yourself.
You introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, everyone. My name is David Jelks. I've been in the wellness industry for almost 25 years. I started in natural health care. I did a 3.5-year internship in natural health care where I trained as a chartered herbalist. Got into Jin Shindo acupressure, biokinesiology, touch for health, educational kinesiology. I'm a clinic, and so that was my first step into the wellness industry. And then from then, I migrated into the fitness industry because, well, fitness was something. Being a herbalist was kind of interesting, but you're locked up in a room, grinding, clean room. That wasn't very exciting. Though I found it fascinating, but it just wasn't all that enthralling. So, and because I like to move. So I got in the fitness industry, you know, shortly thereafter, and I went through various stages. I got really involved in orthopedic rehab, a latter part of my career, something I really began to excel at. I had a kind of a knack for. And of course, all along the way, I've read everything I could get my hands on. I was you know, I had one of these really weird minds. Once I stopped partying so much back in my youth, I realized once I stopped drinking so much and being such a fool that I actually had a good mind that I could remember fairly complicated things. So the last 3 years, I sold my practice about 3 years or so ago, and I've been really, one of my main goals was actually try to deconstruct the complexity around fitness, around nutrition, around psychology, trying to strip away all the wordiness of it, because it's really, I mean, it's really complicated because everybody's saying the same thing with different language.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to get rid of that, and because I found that if we can understand the kind of the foundational premise on how things work, then we can work up from there. It's like a dance step, right? I mean, you can't just say, okay, we're going to just jump right into an advanced level of movement without understanding how to move your hips. Right?
Sure.
So it's the fundamentals, and I think within diet, you know, with exercise and nutrition. Even the fundamentals that we think we understand, there's another one level deeper to go below that. And I think that part is something I've started to explore.
Do you find that with the isolation and COVID and stuff that you've gone back to some of the basic fundamentals?
Oh, yeah, because I don't have the luxury of being complex, right? And the thing, let's say with an exercise, I don't have access to an entire gym full of equipment of, you know, hundreds of pieces of equipment. So I'm using my body weight for lots of things. I don't have access to all the weight I would normally use, right? I was a competitive bodybuilder for 8 years. So I'm accustomed to moving a bunch of weight around all the time. And now my heaviest weight is a 20-pound dumbbell. So I'm using the law of physics, which means I'm using my body weight to generate enough stress to keep me as strong as I want to be, right?
Right.
So it's I mean, there's lots. I mean, and what's really interesting is that the more you understand your body, the more adaptable you are to any circumstance. The more you understand your diet, the more adaptable you are the way you eat. The less you understand, the more you're going to get caught up in ridiculous trends and craziness that would just kind of that'll just make you mental, right? You know, being adaptable means that you understand it well enough to keep it really simple. And I think even Einstein said if you can't take a complicated idea and explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Yeah, I think so. So what kind of things do you think? I mean, there's all kinds of things we can be doing, but this is a strange time for people. And what kind of things that are easy for us to do at home that can help keep us well, even if we're not going to increase our strength or lose 20 pounds, how do we just stay well?
Yeah. How do we find that motivation nowadays, right?
Well, listen, I mean, you know, actually, I was just talking to an older neighbor of mine next door, and we were kind of laughing about all the projects we're now involved in, all the things that we get the chance to do. Like I was cleaning up my office, you know, which is why, I got caught up in organizing, putting things away. And I think this is a really great opportunity to kind of, to pay attention to what you weren't paying attention to. Because it's looking you in the face all the time. So the stay-at-home stuff, one of the things that I've been working with a few people on. I have a lot of athletes. I just became the volunteer strength conditioning and nutritional coach for the U.S. Women's Rugby League. So I'm just doing some volunteer work, and they have the same problem. They don't have access to other equipment. So what I have them doing is postural work. Almost 80% of the work they're doing is all posture based. And what that means is that saying I'm getting them to work on buttock strength, like glute strength, core strength, upper body posture, shoulder strength, and really pulling their body back into alignment. And that's becoming 80% of the work, because really at the end of the day, if you don't have really good structural alignment, as soon as you increase the intensity in any activity, the likelihood is that you're going to get hurt. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's not because that you're not 20 years old. This is this is the excuse that people keep throwing around, which I think is, and I'll say it's nonsense right now. The reason why you get hurt in exercise, and the reason why you need bugs, it's not because you're not 20, right? It means that the time span that you're alive, it's what you do with that time. So it's not the time itself, it's what you do inside that time frame. It's your actions over time. It's not just time, right? So
hey, I got a question for you. Have you always done perfect actions?
Have I always what, pardon me?
Done the right actions over time?
Oh God, no. No, not at all. And that's, you know, that's the way to speak from experience, right? You see the mistakes you make, and the whole idea of wisdom, ideally, is to learn from the mistakes. You know, they say, what do they say, that wisdom is a byproduct of good judgment, and good judgment is the byproduct of bad judgment, right? So,
fair.
right. So
even you have made some bad judgments.
Oh man, I ran nightclubs for the first part of my life. I smoked from the time I was 13. I did more drugs between the time I was 13 and 28. I'm pretty sure that Mick Jagger and a few of the old rockers and I, we could have shared some stories.
Dang.
You know, well, you know, here, and I'll tell you an interesting story, and it may be of some benefit. I'm 28 years old. I'm living in the south of Portugal, right? I've been drinking and using drugs since the age of 13. I lived all over the world. Had a kind of an interesting life. It was kind of fun, but it was very destructive. And I had this. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened, but it was just kind of this wave of sudden awareness came over me, and somewhere in the back of my brain said, you know, you're going to drop dead one day, and nobody's going to care because you didn't do anything. You've been assing around for the last 15 years. You accomplished nothing. You did nothing. You've been just partying your ass off around the planet. That's it. So, you know, one day you'll drop dead and nobody will know and nobody will care because your presence didn't make a difference on any level. And I wasn't a bad person, but I wasn't a good person either, right? I was assing around. I was just avoiding life and being a bit of a fool. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know where that thing came from, but it freaked me out enough I think they call it an existential crisis, right? The crisis of existence. And that's when I came back to North America, and that's when I started studying. And that was 25 years ago, and I haven't stopped, right? It pushed me this far along.
That's awesome. Good to know.
Good to know. I bring that,
it's never too late.
Well, no, God, no. Well, and the reason I bring it up is that, you know, when you circle back to the question, what can we do when we have this time? Well, it's we can pull our problems out of the fog, for one. And I had this conversation with a lady last night, and she's a bit older than me, and she's a physical education teacher, but you know, she put herself in the back burner, like a lot of, especially women, like mothers, they'll put themselves in the back burner to attend to the needs of the family. And then when it comes time for them, they find it really hard to step forward to reclaim themselves.
Yes. Oh yeah, it is.
Right. So, the interesting, you know, this, you know, we're kind of on a tangent of psychology, but I think it's not a bad place to start. I said what I've witnessed over the years, especially because most of my clients have been women in the last 20-some years. There was a cycle of, you know, saying, you know, I'm grateful to have my children. I'm grateful to have this role inside my house. Then it goes to, okay, I'm no longer grateful. Now I'm a little bit resentful because this is all I seem to do. And I seem to be the caretaker for everybody else's stuff. And I don't seem to exist anymore. And then next stage is now I feel guilty because I feel resentful when I should feel grateful.
Right.
Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So it's a really weird cycle and some people never get out of it. Right. Some people never get out of that cycle of gratitude, resentment, and guilt. Gratitude, resentment, and guilt, and going through that awful cycle around and around again. So the conversation I was having with this lady last night, you know, I said, well, if you have gratitude for the fact that you're a mother, and let's say you're a wife and a partner, and maybe you're a business owner as well, You know, you got a bunch of things going on. You know, it's just, what would happen if you feel guilty for taking time out to make sure that you are looked after, your health is looked after, your sleep is looked after, your nutrition is looked after. If you slowly, for the next 3 years, I reduce your health by about 15 to 20% every year over the next 3 years, you now become the dependent. You now become the problem because you have nothing left to you. You're basically a husk of a human being, and you're empty. So that doesn't work. And that's what I mean by pulling the problem out of the fog, where if we can't see our trajectory, if we're not willing to pay attention to where this thing is, where this runaway train is rushing to, which is, you know, this environment is giving us great opportunity to attend to that. If we're not paying attention to it, then, you know, we'll just have to say, it's my body type, or, you know, it's just life, it's fate, whatever. We can pull up some sort of obscure excuse to rationalize why things didn't go well. But for the most of us, including myself, the things that I avoid and the things that I'm able to discern are the things that take me out and the things that cause most of the stress of my life. So we had the opportunity to pull our stuff out of the fog and really start to attend to it. So when it comes to our health and fitness, regardless of what kind of exercise program you want to get into, you know, if Zumba is only make Zumba better is actually having better posture, having stronger glutes, having stronger abs, stronger trunk, and better upper body posture. And if you make that your workout, so for athletes, what I have them do is I give them a series of exercise, which I can drop into the group. I've got a video I created for the U.S. women's rugby team, and I'll gift it to you guys. No, and it was a series of exercises that we did before you went to practice, a series of exercises before you went running. It was a series of exercises before you went strength training. And the reason why we do it before is that if you, so tomorrow morning, Lorena, you're teaching a class tomorrow morning, right? Around 10 o'clock or so?
10:30, yes, I teach.
10:30, okay. So what are people doing prior to 10:30? What is their physical behavior, do you think? Much of anything?
I don't know. Anybody? Can you guys answer that? What are you guys doing right before class? Yeah. If anyone's still on here?
For the time you wake up to the hours before Zumba, what are you doing physically?
I personally do my workout. I do my workout every Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Your workout. I do yours for sure. And then that's my thing. My workout is my thing. That's the first thing I do. And then I do go on with my classes, right? That's me. That's what I do.
I am usually, before I come here, before we do a class, I usually make sure I have breakfast. I usually have coffee. I take my dog out, and I don't do much more than that before.
Well, here's the reason why I ask, because you have to look at, when we look at exercise, and let's say, for example, if you're doing your dance routine and you're doing a bunch of lateral movements, right? So, a bunch of ankle crossovers. I don't know the terminology, but but you're doing a bunch of ankle crossovers, and they're really kind of ballistic movements. Well, your body up until that point in time, other than going for a walk and brushing your teeth, your posture was in flexion, meaning that your curled up posture in bed, right, folded into a little ball. It's been like that for 6 to 8 hours. And then you get up and you kind of wander around, but a lot of your posture muscles are still shut down. So what would happen is that, let's say 15 minutes before Zumba, you got on the ground, and let's say you did a series of planks, right? You tried to plank, let's say, maybe you're not very good at them, so you can hold a plank for 15 seconds. And you did that 5 or 6 times or 8 to 10 times, whatever you can manage, until you feel your abs and they're kind of shaking, right? You're going, okay, this sucks. This is really hard. And then you flipped over on your back and you bent your knees, put your heels on the ground, and then you did some bridges and you lifted your ass up and down, and you did that for, let's say, 3 to 5 sets of 15 repetitions until your glutes are smoking, until they're really uncomfortable, right? Not your lower back, but you kind of light your ass on fire. And then thirdly, okay, and the third thing is that you stood up and you did something simple like reaching your arms forward and squeezing your shoulder blades back together. And you did that for 3 to 5 sets of 15 repetitions. So the muscles between your shoulder blades are actually activated and turned on. Now, what you did successfully is that you turned on some of your primary postural muscles. When those muscles are active, when I go to dance, right, when I start moving, those muscles are responsive and they're turned on, which means how I show up in dance is way different than the person that just crawled out of bed, wiped the sleep out of their eyes, and turned on the video to go dance. It's not, you know, it's not, people that actually have good posture and active posture going into the exercise are way different than the people that don't. It's not even the same experience. It looks the same.
Yeah, for sure.
The tempo will be the same. They may be able to keep up with you. It's not the same thing, not by any stretch of the imagination. So here's the interesting thing. What would it be like is that if every step and every rumba, right, and every cha-cha-cha and everything that you did, everything was a core exercise? What if you could set the stage so that every movement was good for your glutes, good for your abs, and good for your upper body posture? And the only way that's going to work is that if you turn those on before you start dancing. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Well, it's just like, what would be the word? It's just like trying to, it's like trying to study. And let's say I want to read a book, and let's say the book has some complexity to it. So if I took some Cole's notes on the topic and I read through Cole's notes, so I've kind of highlighted some of the key points to get my brain kind of already and get my brain already ready for the stuff that's coming. Right? It's all, you know, I read something that's paraphrased. I go, okay, well, I'm going to read something that's fairly complex. don't have a lot of knowledge of it. So I'm going to read the Cole's notes first, just to get some idea, to get my brain kind of already working on it. And then when it comes time to do the more difficult thing, my brain already has a reference for it. It already kind of gets it. But when you go dance, when you roll out of bed and then hop into a dance class.
Your WhatsApp later. You're breaking, it breaks down, like you're like kind of staticky.
I don't know if there's anybody there.
Yeah, there's like 5 people.
But nobody's answering.
Well, they're listening, right?
Okay.
All right, there.
Because
it was kind of staticky. It was like.
Oh,
how's it sound now? Is this really staticky, or is it coming through all right?
Oh, right now it's good.
That's
yeah,
better.
Right now it's good.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that everybody in the world is streaming Wi-Fi, streaming video through Wi-Fi, right? Netflix and what have you. So it's just, there's probably 100 times the use, which is why it's all kind of the quality's not so great.
Yeah, you know.
But that's what it is.
So do you have like a
Go.
do you have like a top 10 kind of list of things that, like an easy list of things that people can do to stay well in this time?
Yeah. Well, number one, have a routine. Keep a schedule.
Okay.
Get up at the same time. Go to bed at the same time. Just because the world has put a pause button on it, you can't. It's no time to let your schedule kind of go really loose. You think about the schedule that you maintained prior, and now if you had a crazy schedule, then it's probably not a bad idea to back it off a little bit. But your circadian rhythm will get messed up if you don't maintain a normal schedule of events in your life. Get up at the same time. Try to go to bed at the same time. Have lunch at the same time. Try to keep a similar schedule to what you had prior to COVID. Again, because your circadian rhythm will get disrupted, and it's really easy to lose focus. It's really easy to get depressed when your natural rhythm has been disrupted. So that's part of the first one. The other, and just to piggyback that, within that schedule, like I have my day timer, and I fill it out, and I set a schedule not to keep myself to a prisoner to it, but just to create some structure. Cleaning my office is in here, you know, having lunch is in here. I schedule it out just so that it just, you know, I feel like my day still has some purpose and has some organization. Right. So, you know, that'd be the second one, maintaining, you know, having not only maintaining the normal schedule, but actually filling it in. Time block your day. Decide what you're going to do. Right. I think a third one actually, and this is kind of maybe it's a little bit of a personal development one, is but decide what you're going to leave behind, and decide what you're going to do different going forward. You have the time to breathe. You have the time to think. You have way more time to think than perhaps you might not even like all the time that you have to think. Right? I think sometimes well, it can be very confronting, right? If you kept yourself busy enough in your life so you don't have to think, and now you have no choice because it's sitting there staring you in the face, it's a really great opportunity to start actually deciding, okay, when the world slowly returns back to some semblance of normal, what do I need to leave behind that's not serving me? And what needs to change going forward? Right?
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
This is a massive opportunity that you may not get again in a long time. So I think we don't want to squander.
I think that's a good way to.
What's that?
I like that word, like looking at this time as an opportunity, not like a sentence, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's an amazing gift. I mean, it's, you know, not all gifts come, you know, some gifts come badly wrapped. All right. You know, some
true.
Right. And this gift, you know, it's hurt people financially. It's hurt a lot of people physically. I mean, the mortality rate. But that stuff, it is what it is. And so, I mean, life is challenging, but there's lots to be learned from it. And there's no point having this degree of, let's say, of suffering and mayhem if we're not going to turn it into something amazing on the other side. There has to be a gift. Otherwise it was just a punishment for no reason. And that's not a real great way to end this whole kind of global crisis. There has to be a pot of gold at the end of this very ugly rainbow.
I really hope so.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people do. And we don't know when it's going to end. And I think that uncertainty is a little bit hard sometimes to deal with.
Well, you know, and the likelihood, you know, from what I understand or what I can perceive, the likelihood is that when this thing, it'll unfold in pieces. So they're going to be a slow, we'll slowly get our freedom back a little bit at a time, but it's going to be segmental. It's not going to be, okay, everybody, you know, you're all free to go, right? It's not a prison sentence where you just get let out. We're going to get a little bit of freedom back at a time. It's going to be incremental, right? Probably over a period of a couple of months, just to see how the COVID reacts and see how society reacts with it. So, but, I think and going off the third one from that last piece of taking the opportunity to figure things out, really, I guess, to get excited about what's possible going forward. You know, if you see what's not working, and you know what you would rather do, there's a question that I learned to ask myself: who do I need to ask for help to move my life forward?
Right.
Like it's just the expression "no man or woman is an island," and so there's a lot of we're very vulnerable now. Because we're all kind of in the same boat, but it's because we're all in the same boat, it shouldn't feel so awkward, because everybody has a financial struggle, everybody has uncertainty. So it's not like there's only a small part of the population that's struggling. Everyone is in the same boat. Everyone, right? So it's a great opportunity.
That's true. The whole world.
Yeah. You know, it's not like 2008. It's not like 2008, 2009, where a small section of the population got hit really hard. But, you know, a lot of people
Right.
weathered it very well. Everybody is being affected. So, there's lots of understanding and grace in this point in time in history. So, you know, start writing down and making notes of people that you want to reach out to, that you need to connect with, experts, whether it's experts in the financial field, experts in the wellness field, you know, psychologists, religious leaders. Like, you know, what is it? What do you need? Like, you know, who do you need to start talking to? And you start reaching out now and getting those people on your side, start having those really important conversations. So when we're able to move forward, we're moving forward with a lot of questions answered powerfully. Top 10, huh? That's a big order. Okay. I think, you know, actually, I think, you know, a lot of the remainder of them will just come off what we talked about, number 3, about, you know, pulling your issues out of the fog, pulling your problems out of the fog, and trying to decide what the rest of life looks like going forward. You know, we had different parts of our life. You know, we had let's say the spiritual part of our life, whatever that means to you. We have the wellness part of our life. We have our family. We have our relationships. we have our finances. We have our careers. We have our sense of contribution. Right? Our lives are kind of multifaceted. We have a lot of things going on, and so if we look at wellness and say wellness as a grounding position, probably the most important thing that we can attend to is our overall state of wellness, and decide that if I'm well and if I focus on myself and really focus on my wellness, get more support with my overall state of wellness, then a lot of other things that I'm going to be dealing with and have to work through in the coming months and years are actually going to be attended to much easier, because I'm good. Like, I'm physically good. I'm biochemically good. Like, I'm emotionally good, because I look after my wellness. You know, and what is the definition? Like, for you ladies, you know, how would you define wellness?
Uh-oh.
I know, just
I can't hear it.
what? You can hear
Or are
it?
you waiting for us to answer that?
Wait for you, yeah. How would you define wellness?
For me, I would say I'm sleeping well.
Right.
My nutrition is good. I'm cooking. I have some order in my house.
Right.
My relationships, you know, they're not going to be, no relationships can be perfect, but like, I have relationships and connections and social interaction and movement and some regular exercise and doing things that light me up.
Right.
That's my wellness.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, for me the same. Just my exercise, my family, you know, stay good mentally, mostly, because it's really hard nowadays, right? With this, like with the unknowing thing, it's really hard right now. But just as long as I keep myself active and doing what I love, which is the Zumba, right, and my exercise, and as long as I'm happy here, I'll be happy. I'll be fine with my family.
Right. So this, do you mind if I actually, you know, it's, you know, this was kind of supposed to be an open-ended thing, but do you want to experiment a little bit? You want to play a little game with me, a little mental game? You up for it?
Yeah.
All right. So it's, because so many of us are, you know, because a lot of people are struggling right now, struggling to keep themselves focused, to keep themselves positive, and to keep moving forward. Do you have any voices inside your head? Is there anything inside your mind right now, you know, a little voice or a conversation that keeps looping, that you would rather it not be there? Your own personal insanity. Do you have a little thing in your head that, you know, and we all do. So a little thing in your head that's actually amplified ever since this whole thing started. This little voice in your head's become a bit noisier, a bit more of a pain in the ass. It's a bit more, you know, it keeps interfering more and more. Do you have anything like that rolling around inside your head? You don't have to verbalize what it is, but just the fact that it is.
I do.
All right.
Yep.
Now it's, here's the interesting piece. Now, when you, that voice, what is it related to? Is it related to wellness? Is it related to relationships? You don't have to say what it is, but specifically, but under what category would it fall under?
Mine would be under probably relationship with myself.
Okay. Well, so well, just the title, right? We're not needing any details, and the details are actually it's less important. So relationships, as long as you know what it means, I don't have to know the story, right? As long as you know what it means. Lorena, how about for you?
Oh,
yeah. Business, financial.
Okay, financial. Okay, perfect. All right. So let's so when you think, so let's talk about relationship for a second. When you think about relationship in the context in how it's in your mind, right? Whatever that means to you, how are you thinking about it? Are you thinking in more of an images? Are you thinking about specific faces, events? Are you thinking more about, is it more just of a feeling when you think about relationships? How is your mind holding and giving you that information back? Is it more visual? Is it more feeling?
It's very feeling.
Okay. Where is the feeling located inside your body?
Well, this is the thing. I think it's like, I have like a weird relationship. I can tell you, it doesn't matter with health, and I have a lot of health worries. And then I think that just compounds into stress, and it ends up showing up in different parts of the body.
Okay. So, but the reason why I asked why, because we want to see, here's the interesting piece. And again, if we're willing to travel down this road just for a second, like when you move, your physical movement, like how you do Zumba, right? That information is stored in your brain and your body. It's stored in your brain in a collective, say a collection of spaces called your procedural memory, right? Procedure, because procedure is, how do I do this? How do I tie my shoes? How do I throw a ball? How do I follow you guys when you're doing Zumba? It's the procedure. So you'll have procedural memory, and then you'll have episodic memory. And episodic memory, you think about episodes like Netflix, right? So we live life through memory, right? We live life through memory.
We do.
Right? So your experience with finances, your experience with relationships, there's a history behind it. And so the emotions that we feel around any given event are not necessarily about what's currently happening. It's how the mind's taking what's going on and then reflects it against what has happened in your history. And sometimes the emotions of the collective emotions of all of our experiences around that topic come forward all at the same time to make us feel a bit nuts. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually it ties in a little bit here. One of the comments on the feed, Yama said, it's that voice, right? That voice that says I should be doing more, the kids should be doing more, I should be cleaning more, they should be doing more schoolwork. It's that voice.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the next level of it. So with the person that had typed that in, and for yourself, when you think about relationships and you think about that idea in your head, how far back in history would you say that type of dialogue began?
As a child, probably.
Yeah. Can you recall? You don't have to give the exact. We don't need the details of it. Can you recall how far back, roughly, that you may remember that type of conversation beginning?
I don't know. Yama, can you speak to that? Maybe?
Yeah, well, I think I don't know if she's still there.
I'm not sure. I have another.
But I guess basically when this whole started, right?
Well, yeah. So, but the thing is, it's just, you got to remember that your reaction to what's going on now is based on how you reacted in the past. Otherwise, you wouldn't.
She said at age of 12.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay. So here's the interesting. Have you ever heard the expression that is so unlike her, that is totally uncharacteristic of him? I'm not feeling like myself. Yes. So what do you suppose those sentences mean? What do you suppose those phrases mean? I'm not feeling like myself. That's totally uncharacteristic of you. What do you suppose that means?
I don't know.
If I'm listen, I'm a 55, almost a 55-year-old adult, right? And if I have something that shows up inside, something happens around me, and it actually triggers a series of memories across it triggers a series of memories across my the timeline of my brain. And so I'll give you an example. When I was 4 years old, I fell off a 2x4 into a drainage ditch. Okay. So walking across a piece of wood, I fell off into water.
So you are on now.
And I take water into my lungs. My experience around water is terrifying, right? Okay. So I'm 55 years old. Let's say we go to Westwood Lake when this thing all clears up and everybody's playing around, and you try to hold my head underwater. The likelihood is I'm going to punch you right in the femur. Like really, really hard. And why would I do that? The reason I respond that way is that my brain connects the experience of being held underwater to the experience of who I was when I was 4. Where'd you go? There you go.
Is that better? I think it's fine. I don't think they're seeing this anyways. They're seeing that.
No, but he can see, right? So he is seeing that.
Oh, I see. I don't know.
So if you turn around, I can see you guys. So it doesn't matter one way or the other, because they have the direct feed.
Yeah, they're getting a direct feed. So I wonder.
Because we have my computer here, guys.
Second here.
I have my computer here, and then she's using her phone. So now the computer only shows 3 people, and then her phone shows like 8 to 9 people. So I don't know which one they're listening to.
And I missed a question earlier. Someone asked about intermittent fasting in this time. I missed that.
Okay. Well, let's tie up this one point, and then we'll get to intermittent fasting, because we're going down a rabbit hole here.
Okay.
All right. All right. So
I'm gonna close this one then.
So we have to be able to. There's a couple things that we work on, and part of it is actually, if you think about the person that said that their experience goes back to when they were 12. Well,
and 5. One said 5.
And 5. Okay, so do you ever had the experience where something will happen in your environment, inside your life? You'll react in a very unusual way, probably very detrimental. You'll create a whole bunch of drama. You'll feel terrible about it. You don't know why you did it. You just reacted that way. And then you spend a week doing damage control and trying to figure out why you were such a head case. And it's and the reason for that is that when I have an experience in my environment, something I see or something I hear, something I see, something I feel, my brain takes that and it actually matches it against something that I've already experienced in my past. My past, of course, means an experience of a different age of other than who I am now. So if my brain accesses the memory of the 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old is obviously immature, emotionally, insecure, the exaggerated feelings of insecurity, right, and emotional immaturity rise up inside of us, and it can hijack the front of our brain called the prefrontal cortex. When the emotions come forward, now we have this elevated sense of insecurity and fear of a child that's totally unreasonable because it's in the body of an adult. And then we'll react to that uncertainty will react to that fear as if we were a child, not having the capacity to make really good decisions, probably trying to hide and flee, not making any decisions at all. And until those emotions come down, until the brain kind of flushes them out, the adult part of us doesn't get to come forward. So one of the things that I've learned how to do over time, and have been teaching people how to do over time, is that when you feel something, don't automatically assume that feeling is accurate. Because if I know who I am as an adult, I know, if I'm aware of my character strengths, I'm aware of my value, I'm certain of what that is, and I know what it feels like. That's why people use prayer or meditation, right? If I know what that feels like, and yet my body gives me an experience of something completely else, something completely different, I should have the ability to question it, right? Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's yours. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's accurate. Doesn't even mean it's accurate, because, again, me almost drowning as a 4-year-old, that experience still lives inside my biology, inside my brain. And when the events come around that are similar to the experience that I had when I was 4, I will panic with the emotional insecurity and terror of a 4-year-old child drowning.
Right.
And so when we had these degrees of, if we feel that we're having an exaggerated reaction to an event, whether it's to relationships, fear around illness, or it's around money, you can just take pause and ask yourself, I know that this is the feeling I'm being given, but when did it start? Like, who is this? Where's this feeling coming from? And start to question the irrational feelings that we get from time to time.
Right.
It's hugely important. I mean, there's a big biological reason for it, or a physiological reason for it. It's called a negative bias, which is a part of our hardware, and it's normal. The negative bias is normal. Reacting to negativity is normal. Reacting to health challenges, absolutely normal. Reacting to financial challenges, right, or insecurity around relationships, absolutely normal, right? But what's not, but what we're supposed to do is actually, once we have this feeling, then the objective is that now our job is to see how can we remedy it. What are the steps to move forward from it? Again, if anybody wants more information on this, just feel free to reach out to me on your page here, because again, this conversation can get way too hairy. It can go too deep, and I'll find some resources for you to explore it. But I guess the takeaway from that, and we'll get on to intermittent fasting, is question your motive. Question the emotional context that you're experiencing. Don't automatically assume it's true just because you feel it.
Right. Oh, what happened?
Nothing. He's.
All right, we're still there. We're still good.
There.
All right. Now, somebody asked about intermittent fasting. So I'll post something in this on the page here in a little bit. So we can look at what they call time-restricted eating. Now, time-restricted eating, intermittent fasting is a big catch-all phrase. So that's why it's very confusing, because it's quite popular. But time-restricted eating is probably one of the easiest things for people to do in the beginning. And all it simply means is that throughout the, I'm going to take blocks of time, and let's say we start with 12-hour blocks. So if I have breakfast at, let's say, at 7 a.m., then I don't eat past 7 p.m. And I make sure I take in nothing but water for the next 12 hours, of course, with sleep inside of that cycle. So, but for the next 12 hours, nothing but water enters my system. And that's a 12 on, 12 off, time-restricted eating cycle. And the benefit of that is that it puts us into partial fasting mode every single day. You would try for 5 days a week, at least 5 days a week as a minimum. Depending if you like to have a bit of wine with your partner or a friend, what have you, at night, then just give yourself 1 or 2 days a week to allow that to occur. But 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Now, if you find that really simple and you want to take another step further, and we found that people dealing with Crohn's and colitis and other type of inflammatory issues, we've been using longer cycles. So, for example, 10 and 14. So 10 hours, a 10-hour eating window. So all of the calories, all your meals fit within a 10-hour block. And then you do not eat, you take in nothing but water for a complete 14-hour cycle. And then another level past that is 8 and 16, which is you get all your calories in 8 hours and you don't eat for 16. Now people are in different levels of that, but that's much, that for a lot of people, that's relatively easy to do and easy to kind of fill in to the day-to-day activity. And one of the things why it's really important is that in the evening, our body doesn't actually process carbohydrates very well, or foods in general. And generally it's just, and this is more relevant to the wintertime, but as it gets darker, of course, when the light begins to fade, our body begins to shift. Melatonin production starts occurring, but our melatonin we actually process in our gut, it's not just here, it's in our gut. And melatonin actually gets pushed out to our pancreas, which is the primary secretion of insulin, right? It's where insulin comes from. And when the light goes down and melatonin is being released into the body, it goes into the pancreas and actually tries to put it to sleep, tries to shut it down, which means you don't produce as much insulin. If you don't produce as much insulin, you can be diabetic, or what they call nocturnal diabetes. You can be diabetic every evening that you putting carbohydrates into your system in the form of alcohol and grains like crackers and that sort of thing. So we weren't designed to eat late into the evening all the time. And if you're a shift worker, of course, that's even more insane, because shift work is just such a...
Oh my God, yes.
Shift work is absolutely horrible for humans.
It is.
On so many levels. So,
I've done it.
Yeah, it's just devastating when it does to the body. Just absolutely devastating. So, and the thing is, all the research is there, but we're trapped into the 24-hour world. And even though all the research around cancer and heart disease is directly correlated to shift workers, we're stuck in that paradigm. It's not going to change. So we're having to be a little bit more strategic in how we deal with shift work. If there's any shift workers there, again, it's just reach out, because again, there's some strategies you can put in to reduce the negative side effects and consequences of actually having to do that. But again, the intermittent fasting piece, again, you can go 12-hour blocks, you can go 10-hour blocks, or 8-hour blocks, and these are eating windows, and then you just simply fast for the remainder. And then, of course, if you want, you can actually pick an entire 24-hour day. And part of my objective is I like to try to take 1 day a week to fast. So it's a full 24-hour fast. And I find that quite easy to do. I recently did a 5-day fast, and yeah, it was simple. After the second day, it was easy. And it's really good for you. And fasting is a normal part of the human biology, the human biological processes. We need to fast to heal the body. And if we don't stop putting food in our face and we never take the stress out the body, then the body never gets to heal properly. So fasting is probably the best medicine you could ever invest in, and it's cheap. Does that make sense? I'm fairly clear as mud?
Yeah, I have another question on here that I missed, and it came from Chris, and she was wondering if you can think offhand of any good exercises for somebody who has a sway back and pot belly.
Yeah, well, and they may be kind of related a little bit, and of course, part of it would be looking at. The very first thing came to my mind is really short hamstrings, really tight hamstrings, because tight hamstrings or really tight hip flexors. Well, be more hip flexors, because if you look at the hip flexors, the way they're set up the front of the body, the hip flexors will actually, they're called your psoas. They're really short. They'll pull your hips forward. So your hip flexors will pull your pelvis forward, increasing the arch in your lower back, exaggerating that curvature, and it'll protrude your belly forward. So probably two things just that come to mind is, one is consistent hip flexor stretching, like really opening up your rectus femoris, your iliopsoas, and again, it's I'm going to make some notes here, otherwise I don't forget all these things I'm promising, and then I'll forget all of it. Psoas and glutes, fasting, and mindset. Okay. Yeah, so a big part of it is that, again, you look at the front of your thigh, we know where hip flexors are. Well, hip flexors and hip extensors they're paired up. So my hip extensor is my rear end, right? My glutes are my extensors. My hip flexors are in the front. So if one's really short, one's really weak, right? So if I back off the one that's really, really tight and short, I want to go in behind and actually make sure my buttock muscles are really strong. And what you'll find is that your pelvis is probably, this is neutral, your pelvis is probably sitting here, rotated forward, which drops your belly forward. So and this is an assumption, right? It's a theoretical, but I think that we're probably very close to part of the problem. If we unlock those hip flexors and we pull it back, and then we actually pull your spine up straight, your belly, you'll probably lose 2 to 3 inches off your belly just by doing that, just by standing up.
Right.
Yeah, posture is king. Train for whatever you want, train for weight loss, train for endurance, train for speed, but you have to maintain good postural alignment. Otherwise, it's just not going to end well. It's just not going to work. You need posture. Posture is everything. Everything else is secondary to good posture.
Do you believe that you can get back to a good posture once you've gotten out of that?
Yeah, the only thing that would complicate it and make it challenging is let me get my words here. The only thing that would make it potentially challenging is if you actually physically restructured the shape of your spinal column over time, and that would mainly refer to the upper back. Right. So if let's say I've got my spine here, and here's my head, and I've been working at a computer for 40 years, and I've taken my thoracic and cervical spine, and I've done this, and now my head is here.
Yeah.
And so I have this, they call this dowager's or a kyphotic curvature of the spine. So part of the challenge is if I've done that over decades, the likelihood of you actually straightening that out may not be all that great. But we don't know that, but it's important to try anyhow. So let's say you've got really terrible upper body posture and it's been there for decades, right? You've reshaped the entire spine, your cervical spine is right here, and your head's sitting in front of your body. We can still go through and look at, and part of this postural piece is that what's in front of you is your pec, right? Your shoulder and your chest. If we can open that up and work on stretching this, then we work on some structural alignment pieces to see how far we can bring you back. Remember that posture, when you think about like really good upper body posture, what I think is like a crazy nun with a pointing stick, just beating you, telling you to stand up, right? But you can't force posture. You can't just stand up. You can't just say, okay, pull your shoulders back. No, you can't do that. What you want to do is you want to stretch out what's here, what's really tight, and you strengthen what's behind you, and then. Because posture is graceful balance. It's not rigid control. Like you see a beautiful dancer and you see somebody move, right? And when they move, everything just kind of flows. Their body just seems to flow as they walk, right? They got this graceful aspect to their movement. It's because posture is just beautiful balance. It's a combination of good flexibility and then good physical control. But it's not rigid, right? It's not like a military force posture. So you got to think about being graceful with posture, not trying to force the issue.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should probably wrap up pretty quick here for now.
Yeah, I think so.
Took us a while to get going, but I'm glad we figured it out.
Well, now we know for next time how to set it up, because we can make it work. We can make it work better.
Yeah, and
let's go.
Yeah, and I guess listen, I'll just end with this: is that it's just there's even a bad plan's a plan. Like even a bad plan's a plan. Like. Don't keep working on the plan, but never executing. Execute something. Pick one thing this week right? For the rest of this week, pick one thing that you're going to try to master. Don't try to figure it all out at the same time. Attend to what's urgent in your life, right? And deal with the things you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But pick one thing. Say, this week I'm going to work on my posture. I'm going to spend the next week just doing that, right? And then and make that a priority. And don't worry about trying to figure the fasting thing. Don't worry about trying to figure out all these other pieces. Don't make yourself crazy, because you'll end up doing a bunch of things really poorly, and then you'll be disappointed in yourself a week from now. So don't set yourself up for failure. Pick one thing and maybe intermittent fasting, maybe that's your wheelhouse, saying, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Good. Then bloody well do that and make that your priority. And then read a bit about it, watch some videos on it, ask some questions about it. You know, I'm always here for some dialogue around that. But just pick that one thing and then put it into practice and become good at it. And then it maybe, if a week or two is going along, say, yeah, actually, no, I've got the hang of it. Okay, now pick something else to add to your skill set and then move that along. But don't make yourself mental by trying to fix all the problems all at once. You'll just make yourself crazy and you'll quit, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just like I said. If you have questions, you tag me inside this page. Don't necessarily private message me, right? Tag me inside this page, because if I can answer it for you, I can answer it for 20 other people.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
Right.
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, listen. Well, thanks for the chat and thanks for hanging out and blundering through this process. I'm glad we figured it out. And and again, like I said, really we're all in this together. We'll get out of this together. But hopefully, I'll drop a poem that I'd written before. But my intention on this is never going back. I'm never going back to some of the stupid stuff I was doing before. And
I like it. I saw that one.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it. Too many people have paid such a high price with their lives. We paid a high price with our finances. We paid a huge price to be in this position. So let's not take it for granted, and let's honor the price that's being paid by the entire planet and make sure we do something significantly better on the other side of this.
That sounds good. I like it.
All right. Okay, ladies.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody, for sticking it out.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yes. And we have Zumba tomorrow, David, 10:30. No, Saturday, 10:30 with me and Tammy.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Thank you.